So you probably noticed how the new 4-star characters feel different compared to the ones since the game's early release. I am of course talking about the power and support value these new 4-stars bring, because it seems like with every new release our expectations get lower and lower. But is that really true? Well, in this video I am going to share my thoughts whether you should bother raising the new 4-star characters or if you should be doing something else. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by AFK Arena. Now, this game has some of the best collabs I've seen so far, and in this one, The Witcher goes AFK Arena. If you've been living under a rock, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is one of the most acclaimed RPGs of all time, while AFK Arena is the most popular classic idle RPG featuring beautiful artwork. Now, Geralt is very interesting. He has several cool abilities like the signature battle signs. He can create magical traps or cast a spell to block all attacks. Talk about unfair power. He can also use potions. By drinking them, he can do things like boost his attributes or regain health, just like in the Witcher video game. Yennefer is also really exciting. She can enchant nearby enemies, and if Geralt is in the team, he will also deal additional damage to them. Or she can cast her ultimate, dive bomb her enemies and imprison them. But the best part about AFK Arena is that, well, just as the name suggests, it's very easy to play with minimal effort. You collect tons of rewards by just logging in and leaving the game idle, but there's also lots of modes to explore, like raid bosses, dungeons, story mode, and so on. And in this collab, you can obtain both Geralt of Rivia and Yennefer. In fact, you can try them out for free for 3 days, after which there will be an opportunity to redeem them for free by just completing event missions. Just make sure to use my link in the description, help support my channel, and check out AFK Arena now. So, it's been a well-known fact for a long time now that the best 4 stars Genshin has to offer dates back all the way to 1.0, and it's not hard to see why. Benny offers incredible healing and damage boosting, Xingqiu has great raw damage, hydro application, and even reduces incoming damage. While someone like Xiangling, who most often gets paired with Benny to help her with energy issues, she still deals a ton of damage just because her Pyronado has no ICD and can cause huge vapes or other reactions. And even besides the big 3, you've still got Fischl, who was always a great electro battery and raw damage support, but after Dendro Element, she is now almost essential if you want to run really strong quicken teams, thanks to her incredible electro application from her second passive. And who could forget Sucrose? In fact, people do forget her sometimes, but she's truly a busted animal character that can basically do everything you want. She boosts EM, she can be an excellent driver for various reaction teams, and in fact, with Dendro, she is an amazing quick bloom driver with Beidou and Xingqiu. Point is, these characters were here since the game first launched, and while later on we got new 4 stars like Diona and Rosaria, which are pretty solid, something definitely changed after Inazuma's update. The first major thing I realized myself was that it's hard not to compare every new character, even new 5 stars, to the broken 4-star characters we already had in the game. But I'm not here to talk about the past controversies or things that happened. No, what I want to do is take a look at the new 4 stars Hoyoverse have been releasing, because I have read so many comments on my videos, people comparing new 4-star units to old units and asking the same question over and over again. Is it even worth raising the new 4 stars? Well, let's talk about it. Okay, so first of all, I think the word niche has been thrown around for quite a while now, but I believe this definition has really changed after Sumeru update, and now I would say that the only niche units we have are Goro and Yunjin, with some exceptions. You see, before a 3.0 update, I would have made a list of more characters that are niche, like Cookie and Toma, but the reality is, it's just hard to predict what exact plans Hoyoverse has for their characters. Because before the Sumeru update, Cookie was basically the only electro healer that you could put into an electro charge team, but she wasn't bringing much besides her healing, and few support options like Favonius Particles from the sword and Tenacity buff from the artifact. But now, she is an excellent Hyper Bloom triggerer, so if you build her with full EM, not only can she deal really good damage consistently, but her passive also converts that elemental mastery to better healing. Toma, on the other hand, was basically a shielder for Yoimiya or Hu Tao, but even then, he had some problems and it was truly just a niche solution that could be worked around with quite a few other supports. But now, he is basically a functioning Burgeon damage dealer, although because we still don't have fast Dendro off-field application, he runs into problems causing burning to enemies, so some units like Xingqiu are needed to put out these fires, but overall, you can actually now build Burgeon teams with Toma, teams like Tomato I showcased few videos ago. So I think right now, Goro and Yunjin are the remaining units for the niche situations. Goro, especially with more constellations, becomes an invaluable support for Itto or Noelle, as well as Albedo in mono Geo teams, while Yunjin can boost normal attack damage for units like Ayato or Yoimiya. So that would be my definition of a niche unit, something they actually excel in and can be utilized by characters who want this specific boost. But what about Sayu? Well, I think for the most part, she was an experimental 4-star that Hoyoverse wanted to see how good it would be to have a character that's focused on world exploration. In my opinion, it was a pretty successful gamble. I have a specific team just for farming crystal flies and ores, and Sayu is my most important member. But even then, Dendro has also allowed Sayu to become a little bit more versatile thanks to how she interacts in certain teams. Finally, the last sort of niche option would be Kujo-Sara from Inazuma. I probably said this many times already, but I really dislike the idea of hindering units' playstyle by locking the solution behind a constellation. For the most part, yes, Kujo-Sara at C6 is a pretty good electro damage booster. Her own burst can deal quite a lot of damage, but at the end of the day, you need to have her final constellation to see these results. Otherwise, a cheap alternative would be Elisa with Thrilling Tales Catalyst, boosting the damage and acting as a support, even if Thrilling Tales has longer cooldown than Sara's skill. Oh, and I also forgot about the last Inazuma guy, but that's because Hazel was actually a really solid unit. Obviously, a lot of people were quick to jump and compare him to Sucrose, since they are both animal 4-star catalysts, but Sucrose is from the Big 5, and she has better crowd control, although I would say subjectively speaking, Hazel has a pretty fun and unique playstyle, and you can go for some wacky teams like Double Animal Pyro with Kazuha, Benny, and Xiangling. And of course, Hazel can also be used in many variations of Bloom or Quicken teams. Maybe not as great as with Sucrose, but he still works. He is not a niche unit, and it's up to you if you would really want to raise an alternative playstyle character if you already have Sucrose. So as you can see, a lot has changed for some of these 4-stars that got released during the Inazuma cycle, and it is kind of surprising to see just how much of a shift it has been from the old opinions a lot of people held onto about some of these units. However, the consistency kind of started to dwindle yet again with Kali and Dori. So, what happened? Well, if you look at any meta-focused content creator, you'll notice the same thing repeated over and over again. Why use Kali if Dendro Traveler is just better? Why use Dori if Cookie is better? Well, the thing is, I actually love Kali's design and her personal story. Same thing goes for Dori. Her normal attacks are amazing and fun to look at, but before I stray away from the video's topic, I kind of agree with these sentiments of why bother using them if there are better options out there. However, I believe this was done by Hoyoverse intentionally, at least for Kali specifically. See, the thing is, Kali was given away for free in 3.0 major event. It was also announced she's going to be a free reward from doing the Spiral Abyss, which my guess is going to be the same situation as with Xiangling, so in reality, every player will have Kali as long as they do the bare minimum. But Kali isn't being given away because Hoyoverse is feeling generous. No, Sumeru is littered with so many interactables that require using Dendro elements, stuff that hangs in the air, so Dendro Traveler is useless, unless you get creative, but for the most part, Kali is here to help players with exploration. Now regarding her own power, the developer specifically made sure to give her burst and ICD that doesn't allow her to trigger that many Dendro reactions. In fact, she can trigger more reactions from her skill with extra constellations. But all in all, there's a reason why the Traveler is just far more better to use in most Quicken and Bloom team comps compared to Kali, and it's exactly because she was never meant to be a competitive unit, because Hoyo didn't want to repeat the same mistake they did when giving away Xiangling for free, even if she is still free up until this day. Dendro Archon is yet to come out, there's also Alhaitham, and probably more cool Dendro units coming out. Do you really think Kali had any chance to be an amazing Dendro off-field support when the main goal for Hoyoverse, or basically any gacha company, is to make money? Because, you know, the cash flow comes from the 5-stars. Hoyoverse obviously doesn't want us to have a new 4-star that's better than a 5-star, so instead of making strong 4-stars, they either become niche options, or options you can use for world exploration, or just simply exist as a support or damage dealer that's not too broken, but can also work really well in certain teams. Now regarding Dori, I actually think we're dealing with a similar situation as with Kujo-Sara here. Dori becomes kind of decent and fun after unlocking her final constellation, which by the way really resonates with her own character since she's all about taking your money away. Like, the game is pumping out new characters, and at some point, weird stuff will happen like with Dori, since, you know, she's all about the Mora, so why not make her into a weird character that can kind of heal, can kind of restore energy, but really, she can also be a damage dealer at Final Constellation. Which brings me to the most important part of the video, the ever-increasing roster of characters. You and I both know that the standard banner pool keeps getting bigger and bigger. The rotations between featured 4-stars become more and more spread out, so basically, the pool of 4-star characters is getting diluted. Now, I asked my community how long have they been playing Genshin. Surprisingly, a lot of you watching are day 1 players, but Genshin is a game that still keeps growing and averages millions of daily active users every day, so new people are constantly jumping into the game. And with a diluted pool of 4-stars that are mixed together with godlike characters such as Benny and Xingqiu, what are they supposed to do? Just wait until they show up as a featured 4-star? Or until Stardust Shop has them available? I honestly don't know the answer to this question. It's especially challenging for me when I'm making a video about a new 4-star character, and I want to make sure everyone feels inclusive when I review a unit. So just because supposedly Cookie is better than Dory, does that mean nobody should pull for the scammy merchant and just wait until Cookie or other broken 4-star from 1.0 is acquired? I really think the first most important question you need to ask yourself is, do you actually care about the meta? Or at least can you be neutral and, let's say, pull for a non-meta character, enjoy using them, understand that they have limitations, and there might be better options out there, but in the end, you're happy with the final result in your gameplay sessions. I mean, a game is supposed to be fun instead of a chore, so if a new 4-star just doesn't seem like an interesting unit to you, hey, Hoyoverse are constantly pumping out new characters. Eventually you'll find someone you like. And I mean, if you want those measly Primogems and artifacts you get every 2 weeks from finishing Abyss, you can build a lot of different meta teams these days. So even with units like Cookie, this is easily achievable, and I personally believe this Sumeru update has opened up a lot of options that were unavailable before. So now, a lot of 4-stars from Inazuma are pretty awesome, while units like Kali and Dory have their own place in the game. All in all, I would say that people who care about meta, well, the no-brainer choice would be to first focus on raising the big 5 units, since they open up so many different meta team options. And as you keep exploring the game and getting better understanding of how the elemental system and team comps work, it's easier to start dabbling with more niche options, or new 4-stars that bring something else to the table. But since this is a gacha game we're talking about, a lot of stuff is behind randomization, and you never know how long it can take to get these broken 4-stars. So luckily, even without them, you can build plenty of teams that work really well, especially now that Sumeru update allows so many new cool team comps to work. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this. I'd appreciate if you could leave a like on this video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.